to Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, where tonight we are talking about the 2024 Toyota Landcruiser. Last week we talked about the 2024 4Runner and everything that I expect. Marie used to work at a Toyota dealership, knows the brand quite well. I'm an ex-Toyota fanboy, still a good fanboy, but I've broadened my horizons, and we called a lot of the shots of what we're going to see from the 4Runner, and this was even before, it's not revealed yet, and this was before the 2024 Landcruiser officially got revealed. Now we have the 2024 Landcruiser reveal, and it helps confirm a lot of what I said that we should expect to see on the 2024 4Runner. Not revealed yet, but I think I called everything pretty much spot on. We're going to be covering the Landcruiser tonight, and the big question for the 2024 Landcruiser is it better than the Ford Bronco? What is the better buy between these two vehicles? So of course we're going to talk powertrains, we're going to talk price, because thankfully the Landcruiser is a whole lot less expensive than it used to be, because it used to be about starting price about $83,000 US for a Landcruiser. And I think that's just not all that acceptable when you have a Toyota badge in the front. Never felt it made any sense whatsoever. So it wasn't really all that sad to see the Landcruiser leave the market. Now, Toyota's made some adjustments. And one of the major ones is a huge decrease in price. Going to be roughly $30,000 less, making it actually conceivable to compare it to the Ford Bronco. Now, this is going to compete with the Jeep Wrangler. It's going to compete with, of course, also the Ford Bronco, and Toyota is going to create really a challenge for themselves, because this is going to compete against their very own 4Runner, which is going to be coming out, which is not yet revealed. But I think I've revealed all the major parts of the 4Runner in last week's episode. I'll bring out the episode as a little mini episode in the next day or two. But a lot of the Landcruiser is going to have a lot of shared parts with, of course, the Tacoma and the 4Runner. And well, this has been officially revealed, and it's fact that it's sharing a lot of parts with the 24 Tacoma. And last week, I believe it was last week, maybe it's been 2 weeks now, I was saying that the 4Runner 2024 4Runner, when it's released, wait for it if you like the new Tacoma. Don't wait for it if you like the fact that it no longer has a V6. Big surprise, this no longer has a V6. Marie, does that bother you that it doesn't have a V6?
I guess not, because I know few fabricants didn't made a V6 now, and we tend to see that disappear.
Yeah.
Maybe because
along with manual transmissions.
Yeah, maybe because electric vehicle will take more markets too. So
it's not that electric vehicle will naturally take more market, hence one of my almost weekly rants. Electric vehicles,
it's imposed.
It's not even imposed in the sense that they're just going to be forcing you to buy an electric vehicle. They're just making V8s not plausible for manufacturers to survive on. Mm-hmm. Manufacturers have the choice. Continue to sell V8s in high volumes and watch your company get destroyed. Now that's not the goal of any CEO. No CEO is willing to go down with the ship, to be the ones that sunk the ship because they refuse to follow government rules. Now, as purchasers, we can kind of sink that ship to only a certain point, because everyone is being manhandled into this new world that we're having created for us before our eyes. And for the most part, I think for many of us, outside of any choice that we ever actually want. But anyways, we're not getting to vote on any of this. But that's maybe for later on. I'm not worked up yet. What I am worked up about is the new Landcruiser, because it is exciting. This is huge news, and I'm really happy that we're going to be going through it and sharing it with all of you. Outsider Reviews says, "I guess so. Beware your." So I like what's going on in the chat in the chat right now. Outsider Reviews, great show, a great channel. Enjoying your car reviews quite a bit. Now, for tonight, the setup of this live show, remember, if you don't like longer shows and hanging out in a community here and having poodles fight below the table and hit the camera, sorry about that, folks. They're full of something tonight. But if you don't like it and you only like 20-minute episodes, we will break these up into episodes. So right now I'm just introducing the show. We're going to be talking Landcruiser, what it is, and is it better than the Bronco? And there are definitely some areas where the Landcruiser is better than the Bronco. And there's some areas where the Bronco is a heck of a lot better than this new Landcruiser, even though Toyota had a chance to look at the Bronco, copy some elements of it, and sort of keep what they like and throw out what they don't like. Well, I think they threw out some of the biggest, most important things about an off-roader. So we'll reflect on, how much of a real off-roader this is, because so far it's press time. And when a new model comes out, all the press people get invited to the events. They really get they can even have, they can even be brought to those events for free, which some say yes and some say no. I believe, for example, TFL, I think they always say no. They go on their own dime so that they're more unbiased. But nonetheless, when you go to these events, they're really impressive and a lot of fun. Everyone seems to be unbelievably positive the first few months of a new vehicle reveal, getting a lot of people to wait on a new product to only later be disappointed. When the Ford Lightning first got revealed, I pointed out many facts that I saw would be issues for people. And it turns out a lot of people are canceling their Lightning orders for the things that I called, and they're canceling them for the reasons that I mentioned in the show the morning after the reveal. I was saying, hey, look, the Lightning will probably weigh about 6,500 pounds. If you tow about that weight, you're going to lose half your battery in the winter. Expect to lose, 30% to 50% of your range on your battery. And those are the main reasons people are canceling them. And now YouTube is, railing against the Lightning and complaining about how it loses so much autonomy when you tow. But they were all huge fans and saying it was better than sliced bread and raving on and on about how the Lightning was just so amazing. They just couldn't, pardon me, but shut up about all the positive points and didn't share any of the pretty obvious, if you do the math and you look at the data, the pretty obvious factors that we had to look at. So we're going to look at the real factors behind the Landcruiser, because here I don't want anyone getting fooled, and I'm just not a huge fan of watching these reviews that they're throwing out words like it's heroic, it's legendary, it's going to be an amazing off-roader, and it's just everything is so unbelievably positive that it's very easy to get excited and put down a deposit and order, 300, maybe 350,000 Lightning reservations occurred. And now Ford is maybe selling, Ford couldn't sell 300,000 Lightnings this year, that's for sure. And a lot of the reasons people are canceling and a lot of the reasons people are upset, they watch the now YouTube videos that are complaining about Lightning range. And when you tow, the range is horrible. In the winter, the range is horrible. No, it's what was pretty obvious would occur way back when. Just logically, when you tow with a gasoline, an EcoBoost engine, instead of 13 liters per 100 kilometers, if you tow properly, you're probably going to do 26 liters per 100 kilometers. You burn twice as much fuel. Why wouldn't you burn twice as much battery? And we had already seen it with other electric vehicles, what happens when you tow. So anyways, let's get this show started. I've already started the show with a rant. Honey,
that's a long introduction because you had a rant in it.
We're also going to be talking this evening about some numbers. We're going to be talking about the used market, the new market. Is it a good time to buy? Is it a bad time to buy? But really, I want to have a don't be fooled. And I thought I'd only rant about this one point. There's a lot of YouTube information out there kind of trying to point out that, all these manufacturers are really doing some really kind of nefarious, really bad, almost evil behaviors and actions because their fleet sales have gone up quite a bit, and the increase in fleet sales is higher than the increase in retail sales. And I'd say there's nothing really nefarious going on. It's just very much typical historical behavior for manufacturers. We'll talk about what that means. What am I really talking about? Fleet sales have gone up quite a bit, and there's a whole story behind that, and it's not some nefarious thing that's any different than what manufacturers have been doing for the last 5, 6, 7 decades. So we'll explain what you should expect in regards to pricing on a new vehicle versus the used market, because we're here to save you all thousands. So let's get this show started. I'm sorry, we're starting on the real show on the 10-minute mark because I had a 10-minute rant basically. But at least we're going to be covering the real deal behind the Landcruiser, because we don't want anyone getting fooled. We're going to talk about all the positive points, and we're going to be realistic about the actual things we should know before we put a deposit down on this vehicle and then maybe cancel because we're horribly disappointed when YouTube reality, when the journalists, they always do this, new vehicle, super exciting, 2-3 months, then they'll trash it after it's been out for a year or two when it's safe to trash it because people's excitement has gone. Well, I'm not going with people's excitements, I'm going with the facts and the data. So let's get started right up. Thank you everyone for being here in the show. We've got Outsider Reviews, we've got M. Peugeot, thank you very much for making it. Ridgeview, thank you for moderating as per usual, truly appreciated. We just got back from Bronco off-rodeo. If we've got time, we'll share a little bit of info about that as well, and it's going to help us with our comparison. What's the better vehicle here? They each have their pros and their cons. They're both winning in some areas and losing in other areas. So let's get this show on the road with the first slide. Now, while I pull up the first, we're going to look at some photos of the vehicle and talk some facts first on the Landcruiser. You haven't seen a whole lot of photos, but what are your just quick first impressions?
For this one, it feels to me like the FG Cruiser is back, because I see some similarities with the top, the roof of another color. That blue was popular blue on the FG Cruiser. We always saw yellow ones, blue ones, and the lines makes me in the front there. It looks like the Bronco. It's a little bit square like the Bronco with fine lines. So I guess, they wants to go in the competition. And the difference that I see, the biggest difference of the FG Cruiser, because I found it pretty similar, but the front lights are more square than before. So yeah, I think I love it, but I'm not sure if I love it more. I prefer the Bronco.
You prefer the styling on the Bronco?
Yeah, because the front, this one is not that bad. That square, that's big and rough, but it doesn't seem like it's. It has a little touches that could be. I'm searching how to say that. Like it could have more stuff on it, more details.
Yeah, and actually this ties in really well with M. Peugeot's question. You're saying it could have more details, a little more stuff on it. M. Peugeot asked, does the Toyota Landcruiser, TLC we'll say, does it have a front locker? Well, what it does have is the diff in the back locks, and they've got a locking center, and I guess we'll call it a locking transfer case because there's no diff in the center of the vehicle, right? We'll get to the exact details for the language of it, but essentially it will kind of I believe it's going to behave like it has a locking front diff because you can lock up that transfer case in the middle. So we'll get to that exact detail and answer that, but while it's not missing the typical things that a Toyota would miss, because Miracle, if we zoom in here, I've complained about this when they brought out the Tundra. I complained about this when they brought out the 24 Tacoma. Finally, every Landcruiser will have tow hooks. So Toyota has listened, I guess, to journalists' complaints, because I can't believe it, they have tow hooks. Now, they make sure to make them black and hard to see and hard to find, but they're actually there. Toyota doesn't like to advertise, I guess, that they have a useful, manly off-roader. Yeah. So miraculously, we're getting that from Toyota. Nice
good news.
surprise. Now, before we actually go into the facts behind this vehicle, I'd love to go through a bit of a exterior view while we're talking style.
And while we are talking about exterior, car question answered said the real thing that I wanted to say, and that's great how you say it. He said it looks like an FG and a Bronco had a baby.
That's well said. Yeah.
For sure, is we see the FG in that car, and we see the square line of the Broncos. That's the perfect things to say.
And Peugeot was saying they should have called it the Landcruiser Sport, and I think he's pointing out very adequately that this is now smaller than the previous Landcruiser, but it is going to be roughly $30,000 less, and that's really huge here. But they have cut down. There's no third row. This will no longer seat 8. It's going to be a 5-seater, like the Bronco. But here, Marie, you can see there's a different styling going on. So for those of you that don't like the square lights, that's on the more equipped model. This is the less equipped model. So this is the 1958 model, to pay homage to when they first brought this vehicle to the US. And you've got the round lights, a little bit more like a Ford Bronco. And yes, very squared off. You've got sort of the kind of mostly squared off wheel well arches, making me think of a GM truck. But you do have a modular front bumper, so you can see that the front bumper is separate from the grille. It's separate from the sides here. So if you bang this up, you're going to be changing. It's modular, so you're just going to be changing out the bottom. It does seem like there's a good amount of space between the front grille here. I'll try to zoom in. And the radiator, so we'll have to find out if we'll be able to shove a winch in there or not. The skid plates down here, now I've zoomed in on the laptop and they don't look all that thick or all that beefy, but this ideally isn't necessarily your off-roader. It has 8.7 inches of ground clearance, making the Landcruiser not quite compete to the same group. It doesn't sell necessarily to the same group that are going to be shopping a 4Runner, because a 4Runner has 9.7 inches of ground clearance. So that's kind of a big deal. And all the reviews right now can't seem to stop going on and on and on and on about how this thing is a legend. It's going to be legendary off-road. And we just got back from Bronco Off-Rodeo.
They did the same as Ford. They bring back a legend.
Yeah, everyone's bringing back a legend, but here my main issue is that 8.7 inches of ground clearance on this Landcruiser actually isn't that good. That's more Bronco Sport territory. Now, the Bronco starts, if you get, your smallest big-sized Bronco with the smallest tires and the least off-road capable, so just a base model with nothing, your ground clearance is going to be awfully close to that. Now I've got it over here on a different slide. So we've got it here. Ground clearance on a 2-door starts at 8.4 inches, or on a 4-door 8.3 inches. However, it goes up to 11.6 inches or 11.5 inches. So, I like data. I like to look at things. I don't like to just, say things like, this is a new vehicle, so everyone's going to be excited. So I'm going to be excited. And now I'm going to spew things that aren't true. The real deal behind the Landcruiser is, while it might have the capability to go many places extremely well, it's not going to be an awesome or legendary off-roader with 8.7 inches of ground clearance. Now, your approach angle is at 31 degrees and your departure angle is at 22 degrees. So we'd have to give, when we look over here, approach angle on the Bronco, 35.5 degrees. And you've got your breakover angle at 21.1 degrees, up to as much as 29, and actually your approach angle on your Sasquatch models is actually 43.2 degrees. On the 4-door, it can go up to 43.2 degrees as well. You've got the Landcruiser coming in at 31 degrees for an approach angle. So the Bronco completely blows it out of the water. The Bronco is a much more capable off-roader. However, let's look at departure angle. Well, if you get just your base Bronco, because you want to save money and you don't modify it, you're at 29.8 degrees. So a little bit Is it a little bit less? Oh no, wait, the Landcruiser is at 22 degrees of departure angle. Your base Bronco is going to be at 29.8 degrees to as much as 37.2 degrees. So it's pretty easy to see that the Bronco is legendary when it comes to off-roading if you take a Sasquatch or if you modify your Bronco. But the Landcruiser, even though it actually has tow hooks, good job Toyota, that's great, but it's not legendary, and it's not heroic, and it's not going to be amazing at off-roading as if it's going to be one of the best out there when just the Jeep is going to offer better off-roading. Of course, the Bronco is offering better off-roading. Now, we just got back from Bronco off-rodeo. How did you feel about that?
That was awesome.
That was awesome? Okay.
So much, yeah. That was the perfect day. And I was afraid at first to try doing the off-road because I had to drive a Bronco when John was in another one. But it was easy with the indication. We have great cars to do that, so nothing's wrong with it. No stress at all. It was an awesome day, and we did some special parkour that, yeah, sometimes we hit the rocks underneath. We hear
approach angle and departure angle. So approach angle is the angle in which you can approach things. Departure is, well, right here you can see the vehicle departing off these rocks, and if your angle isn't good enough, you lose your bumper. And if your approach angle isn't good enough, you just drive into things and your bumper rips off. So approach and departure angle are so unbelievably important. So I have to call, I have to say the real deal. The Landcruiser is going to have a lot of positive points that we're going to get to in a minute. I'm not all about the negative. We just happen to be on the off-road topic. But the Landcruiser is not going to be an incredible off-roader. It's going to be great and amazing at doing some light to medium off-roading, but doing anything that's heavy to extreme, it's going to be pretty awful at. So I wouldn't want anyone ordering this up that thinks they're going to take a Landcruiser and do some hard to extreme off-roading. The Landcruiser is not going to be a vehicle that you're going to bring out to Moab. It's going to be a lot like the Bronco Sport. Which I think M. Peugeot, I didn't get to read his whole comment, but I think that's basically what M. Peugeot is probably referring to, because its clearance and approach angle and departure angle is closer. It's more similar and comparable to a Bronco Sport.
Yeah, that's what he said.
However, the pricing on the Landcruiser is going to start at a nice rough $55,000, and that's a whole lot more money than
The Bronco Sport.
the Bronco Sport. You can have basically almost two Bronco Sports for the starting price of one Landcruiser. So if you are going to off-road and it's going to be hard to extreme, that entire area, if you're going to be really going over rocks and coming off of rocks, you don't want the Landcruiser. Where you do want a Landcruiser is a light off-roader to go see your horses. It's going to be amazing. To go through the field, to, whatever it may be, a little bit of light field driving. It's going to be fantastic. Light forest driving. It's going to be fantastic. But it's not going to be your go everywhere vehicle as it's being presented. Now, in case people don't believe me here, let's just go to a video that I have prepared to get ready. And it's everyone sort of often manufacturers come out with a new vehicle, and at first there's not very much information. And every journalist wants to be the very first because that's how you get all the major views. When you're the first, you're going to get a lot of views almost no matter what you do. And if you're later on, like if you're like me and I've reflected on this material and you're whatever it may be 4 or 5 days late, you're not going to get a whole lot of views, but it does give me a chance to talk about all the positive points that Toyota or Ford or Jeep that they're pushing, plus the more realistic points. So let's cut to their video here, play a little bit of sound. We'll pause it from time to time to kind of tell the real deal so that no one gets fooled. And also, I don't want to give the wrong impression. I really like the new Landcruiser, if bought and used for the right purpose. Just like I love the F-150 Lightning, but day one, of, the morning after the reveal, I was like, hey, watch out. Towing, you're going to lose half your range. In the winter, you're going to lose up to half your range, because I wanted people to be protected. It's not because I'll only say positive things about one brand. I want to be fair to everyone. And we're going to get to the interior on the Landcruiser. It's going to be amazing. The technology, it's going to be amazing. The safety features, it's going to be safer than the Bronco. And it's going to have some features that no Bronco has yet, that we were just talking about. Bronco, you can't have it with ventilated seats. This you can. The technology that this comes standard with is much better than the standard technology on a Ford Bronco. So I'm very much pro Toyota Landcruiser for the right buyer. I would not take a Landcruiser up to my parents' domain and start playing around in their 200 acres of woods. I would get stuck, and it would either cost me a lot, either in physical damage trying to get it out to myself, or it cost me a lot because I'd actually try to find someone that I could pay to get me out. Obviously, I'd get something like the Lightning or the Bronco to pull it out, but it would definitely get stuck unbelievably quick. Heck, the Raptor we bottomed out at my parents' place in the forest, and the Bronco off-rodeo, we bottomed out quite a few times. I think I bottomed out about 4 or 5 times, and I heard you bottom out at least as many times as me.
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't buy a Bronco if I'm looking for a super high-end luxury vehicle. But I also wouldn't buy this as a super high-end off-roader. So let's get to what all the hype is about, all the excitement.
Toyota Landcruiser embodies toughness and capability. Backed by over 70 years of heritage, this iconic off-road machine is recognized across the globe for its ability to go just about anywhere. And for 2024,
there we have it.
This incredible SUV makes an epic return.
So right off the bat, Toyota's saying this basically goes anywhere. And I really can't agree with that when you've got 8.7 inches of ground clearance. Not great approach and departure angle. Pretty decent approach and departure angle, but nothing to write home about, nothing to call epic, and not to say that it can basically go anywhere. It can go basically anywhere if you live in New York or Detroit. It will definitely handle Detroit or Quebec's bad roads. It'll go anywhere in Canada along the main roads and highways. Let's continue. I think we've covered that fact amply.
Packing the latest technologies and a renewed emphasis on off-road capability to fuel adventures. Featuring 2 available grades, plus a global first edition, and powered exclusively by the iForce Max hybrid system, Landcruiser is back and ready to showcase why it's an automotive icon.
You know what? When I saw the back for the first time, I was like, looks old.
I like it. I really like the styling on this. So, and one of the things I love about the Ford Bronco is the fact that it goes back to its heritage in regards to styling, but wider and longer, beefier,
But it was more modern,
muscular looking. Whereas this is mixing sort of a squared off, muscular look with a lot of quality, some of the best safety features you're going to get as standard equipment, because it's not as if Toyota's reinventing the wheel when it comes to safety features. It's just they're offering some incredible safety features right off the bat, such as standard cruise control, of course, standard adaptive cruise control, standard lane keeping. So they're really packing a punch when it comes to safety. And that's really what I think they should focus on. They should focus to their strengths, that they're going to offer really great interior comfort for the cabins, that they're going to offer, a hybrid engine. But we'll let them continue on their rant, and we'll just correct things as we go along. We'll tell the real deal as we move along.
For 2024, Landcruiser returns to its off-roading roots, and it comes equipped with plenty of advanced powertrain and chassis technologies. This starts with the TNGA-F architecture, which features a fully boxed frame with Dejima welded planks for enhanced structural rigidity.
So when it comes to the frame, it's fantastic. So fully boxed in frame is it's as good as we can get right now for something that's going to be rigid, strong, and long lasting. This is going to be very dependable, just the way that Land Cruisers have always been. A very, very dependable machine. They've done the frame completely right in those regards. It is a very capable off-roader because it's not a unibody that's going to twist or anything. In regards to rust, when you've got a fully boxed in frame, your vehicle is going to last a lot longer. So spot on for the frame. I do expect this to be offer a comfortable drive, just like the new Tacoma, and just like the upcoming the not yet revealed 4Runner. Pretty obvious that we're getting the iForce and iForce Max engines from the Tacoma, which I called last week, a week or two ago. Then the Landcruiser comes out, and they've made it very clear they're going to use the hybrid engine as their sole option. So you're going to have a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder hybrid powertrain that delivers 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. Now that's with your battery. That's when your battery has a charge on it, and the battery is not quite 2 kilowatts, so it's not a huge battery. I've got the exact size of the battery here noted away. Just got to get through my notes here. It's not a lithium ion battery. It's running a nickel battery, which I think is going to be good for long-term reliability, but it's a 1.87 kilowatt nickel metal hybrid battery, and that sits atop the axle where a third row would normally go on previous Land Cruisers that were roughly $83,500. This is supposed to, according to Toyota, start around the mid 50s. Now let's hope it's not like when Chevrolet unveiled their electric vehicle at an incredibly low price and then didn't produce the vehicle yet and have already increased the price a tremendous amount. Mm-hmm. It's going to also offer a standard 2400 watt inverter and power delivery system. So that's going to be great for people that are wanting to go camping. So this is going to be it's not just going to be a mall crawler. This is going to be a great vehicle to take out camping. I'd say if you're just going camping and you're sticking to light to medium trails like we see in the videos here, a little bit of sandy hill, a little bit of mud, it's going to be absolutely fantastic and so comfortable in doing so. If you're going to do any, serious off-roading, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble because the ground clearance is pretty poor. So it does have a 2-speed transfer case with a torsion center differential. So it has I was thinking it must be the transfer case that has some sort of locking mechanism to it. I was way off. It's got a torsion center differential as well as a rear differential. And that center differential allows constant all-wheel drive operation on dry pavement. So it's not just, an old school 4x4 system. Obviously, Toyota has got, good mechanical technology. And you're going to be able to automatically lock the transfer case when you shift into low range. So automatic shifting. When you put it in low range manually, it's going to automatically lock the transfer case. Or the driver can choose to do so in high range. So very useful. So you got push button, lock, rear differential, a crawl control system. So crawl control system is, let's say you're going up this hill here. You can set it to 5 miles per hour, and it's gonna completely control your accelerator and the brake pedal. It's gonna know when to accelerate, it's gonna know when to brake, and it's just gonna have you go through the entire terrain, whether you're going up or down, at the speed you selected. How did you find that went on the Bronco at Bronco Off Rodeo this weekend?
The speed?
The off-road cruise control, we can call it, which, everyone's calling that crawl control system. But how did you find Ford's crawl control system?
Went very well. I have nothing else to say. It was easy with that, and you have nothing to do. You don't put the gas on, don't put the brake on. Some places, because it was something else. Some places with the rocks going down, we needed to brake sometimes, but with the control, it was easy. We set it at 1 miles per hour.
and going downhill, we didn't even need to turn it on because you can just throw it into manual mode, force the vehicle down into first gear, and you'll just crawl down hills in first gear, and you don't have to touch the brake pedal. It's one of the things that they had us practice because, quite frankly, Bronco Off-Rodeo is an incredible off-road school. It provides excellent education, and our monitor saw that things were going well, so we actually got to do some extreme off-roading on some granite slabs at a pretty steep angle. The photos and the videos we've got for you today do not do justice to how steep things actually were. We couldn't see the top of the hands of our monitor because of how high we were looking up, but boy, was ground clearance so unbelievably important. If we would have done the stuff we did in the Landcruiser, we would have wrecked it. We would have totaled it. We definitely needed that ground clearance because even with the, 11.6 or 11 inches of ground clearance, we bottomed out quite a bit. Thank goodness for the rock guards, the rock bars to protect the bottoms of the doors. I hit those a lot. I woke up some animals in the woods. If the bears were sleeping during the day, or the coyotes, I should say, if the coyotes were sleeping during the day, which they tend to do that, they were definitely woken up by all the banging around I did in the woods.
Luckily, it wasn't with Ford Bronco.
Yeah. So let's just continue to kind of tell the real deal behind the Landcruiser, all the positive, all the negative, more of the positives coming more towards then, because I want to make sure that people get the negative, because it's impossible to not get the positive right now on YouTube or any journalist, any news media outlet, and you're only getting the positive. So I'm starting with the negative, not because I'm a negative Nancy, not because I'm going full Super Saiyan Karen, but because I want to make sure that as many people as possible get the information you're not going to get elsewhere. So let's let them continue their spiel.
Skid plates help protect the underbody from debris during off-road driving and complement the 8.3
skid plates on all of them.
Ground clearance, while standard recovery points help ensure easy vehicle retrieval. To help maximize traction off the beaten path, Landcruiser...
Okay, nothing helps optimize 8.3 inches of ground clearance. So they just covered, I've been saying 8.7 because I Googled it and that's what I got from Google, but we can see directly from Toyota, it's actually 8.3 inches of ground clearance. So worse than expected, but they're saying that the skid plates help complement. No, the skid plates help somewhat save you from a horrible, kind of pathetic ground clearance.
Yeah, because you don't want to do the turtle, like the monitor said this week. If you, even if you have plate, if you're stuck on a rock and doing the turtle like that, you're not able to go out.
It's a major, if hopefully you're off-roading with buddies, at least one other vehicle. But if you turtle, so that's when, right here, let's say this rock was a little higher and it pinches up underneath the body. And if it's not just a little triangle point, you can kind of scoot past. If you get stuck on that center point, high-centered or turtling, if you get high-centered, you're stuck there until someone rips you off. And if you get ripped off, okay, your skid plates might save the vehicle, but those skid plates aren't going to save your differential. And remember, 8.3 inches of ground clearance, I wonder if they're calculating that at the lowest point, but I highly doubt that they're calculating that off the height of the rear differential, because this is a solid rear axle. The front suspension is going to be independent suspension. So with a front independent suspension, this is probably going to handle and better than a Jeep. It's going to be more comfortable than a Jeep. It's not going to off-road anywhere to the level of a Jeep. The rear diff is solid. Sorry, the rear axle is completely solid. So between the rear wheels, from one wheel to another wheel, is a big old cylinder. And in the middle, you've got a diff that hangs lower. So you could say the man parts of this vehicle hang pretty darn low. and I'm sure they're hanging lower than 8.3 inches. That's going to be sort of your issue, because if you get high centered, when someone goes to pull you off, they're probably going to catch your diff. So I've got a bit of a problem with that. The Landcruiser has available features like a multi-terrain select system. Okay, that's cool. It can help give you better traction under different conditions. So to give you the ideal type of traction, the power management and the management of the brakes going to each wheel is going to differ based on what terrain selector, what type of terrain you've selected. So I think that's good, but it's also, pretty common. You've got it on pretty much anything that claims to be even slightly of an off-road vehicle.
Cruiser has available features like a multi-terrain select system that now functions in 4 high and 4 low, and standard crawl control. Complementing these is a standard rear locking differential that can help split.
Rear locking differential, fantastic. Having a 4 low, also fantastic for getting you off-roading, as long as it's light to medium off-roading. It's going to handle the mud well, as long as it's not too deep. It's going to handle a little bit of rocks, as long as the rocks aren't too high. So it's going to take you out to some, if your horses, you've got to cross many farmers' fields to get to your horses, you're going to be really well served by this vehicle.
Split power 50-50 between the rear wheels in limited traction situations, and an available front stabilizer bar disconnect system with
2 really good points.
That's a feature I know.
Stabilizer front bar, awesome. It helps make up for the fact, it helps sort of compensate for the fact that it's not a front solid axle. But when you have a solid front axle, you also don't have nearly as comfortable of a vehicle when going to work, because we call them mall crawlers, but I don't like that term, because it sort of helps automakers be like, hey, this is an off-roader, and not put effort into making this comfortable to getting us to work. Most of us, pretty much all of us, aren't going to buy a $55,000 vehicle to only do off-roading. If we're going to spend that kind of money, we also need it to be adequate at getting us to work. So 2 great things. Locking rear diff, skid plates, very positive. Lots of positive here. So just 50-50 split in power between the front and the rear, also very good for traction.
And an available front stabilizer bar disconnect system, which enhances its ability to tackle tough obstacles on the trail with front wheel articulation, resulting in better ground contact. Additionally, full-time 4-wheel drive helps improve Landcruiser's on-road dynamics for a smooth, stable drive on the way to the trails. Landcruiser's emphasis on performance is even more evident when its powertrain is considered. Every grade comes standard with the potent iForce Max hybrid system, which uses a 2.4-liter turbocharged.
Now, this is going to be a point that's going to bother definitely some diehard old-school Toyota fans. They're used to having a V8 in the Landcruiser. They adapted to having a 4-liter 6-cylinder in the 4Runner. But the 4Runner, for some people, is going to stay much more of an off-road machine until they find out the 2024 4Runner is going to be revealed and unveiled with the same powertrain, but probably 2 powertrains. You'll probably have just 4-cylinder turbo and called iForce at Toyota, and you're going to have the iForce Max. Now, the Landcruiser only comes with the iForce Max, but it has ample power, more than enough power to do some off-roading. So it's got 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque, as long as your 1.87 kilowatt battery isn't empty. And it's not going to be a plug-in. It's going to recharge when you let go of the accelerator. But let's say you're going up a big hill, and then when you get to the top of the hill, you're on a flat and you want to give it gas, you're not going to have that 326 horsepower, and you're not going to have 465 horsepower because your battery will be empty from going up the hill. So there will be times where there just won't be available battery. It'll never be completely empty, because they can't allow that to happen, because it would freeze, crack, and cost thousands of dollars to replace. And Toyota doesn't like having those type of issues. You know, the Toyota RAV4 has had some very bad luck because their cable, their power cable, was complete garbage. And for a good while, they're telling customers, no, there must have been something you've done. That's on you. Go pay the $8,000 Canadian dollar bill yourself. I've talked to Toyota people. That's what was going on. But Toyota, very good on them. They stepped up. They did some research. They paid to do the research. And when they found that it's on them, they're like, sorry, everyone who's paid for a cable will reimburse you. So if you've got a Toyota RAV4 and you've paid for that power cable underneath the vehicle, Toyota is now admitting that it was garbage, and you will get your money back, but you have to go and ask for it. Don't just hope that you can do nothing and get thousands of dollars back. You got to push to get it back. But you don't have to push very hard. You just have to ask, make a formal demand, and they will formally pay you back. And new customers that are having problems with that, well, now it's a known problem, it's an accepted problem, and there won't be any debate on who's paying what. Toyota will apologize, switch it. So I think by now, Toyota knows where to buy their power cables, and I don't think we're going to have a problem with this. It is relatively, it's a powertrain that's only been out for a few years. It's certainly not like that 4-liter V6 in the 4Runner that's been out for almost 2 decades. And it's also horrible with fuel economy. This should be a lot better in fuel economy, and this should beat the Bronco when it comes to fuel economy. But I'm not ready to be positive yet. I still got to go cut through all the bull crap, pardon my language. I almost swore, the bull crap that Toyota is overselling this, and pretty much every YouTube video currently is overselling this. And I'm going to continue with the real deal right here at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. Please help support us. Help dress the poodles that I'm not going to show you because they're now sleeping and no longer in WrestleMania mode. The Royal Rumble is over, but give us a like. Please hit the subscribe button, and it helps dress and feed those poodles. And in return, we'll wish you more cars and more power. Let's continue with this extra vehicle that could potentially end up in our yard. If Toyota sends me one for a week, I will 100% review it. If Toyota, unfortunately, offers to pay me to come out to one of their events, unfortunately, I'm still going to have to say what I love about it and also what I don't like about it. And I think this is a great vehicle. It just can't be sold as an ultimate, go everywhere. Almost, they said right at the beginning, goes almost anywhere. No, it goes almost anywhere. Yeah, if you're counting all the main roads and you're not looking at any real off-road, it goes almost anywhere if you're super rich and it's taking you out to your pony pasture. This is a rich bee vehicle, and it's not the type of vehicle that it would want to do what we did at Bronco Off-Rodeo. It would get high-centered, and it would have to be ripped off with a winch, and it would cause serious damage because the diff would likely catch. So some issues just so with the way that they're selling their salad, but it's a good salad. Let's continue with this. Is there really such thing as a good salad?
Four-cylinder engine and an electric motor backed by a high-voltage battery, generating a healthy 325 net combined horsepower and an impressive 465 pound-feet of electrified torque. This powertrain is the ideal partner for Landcruiser's rugged suspension and helps ensure there's abundant power on and off-road. Plus, generous low-end torque provides effortless performance in challenging driving conditions. What's more, Landcruiser's maximum towing capacity of 6,000 pounds
It tows 6,000 pounds. This blows the Bronco out of the water. This is an advantage over many Jeep models. This is an advantage over really many, not all, but many Ford models. This tows more than some. It tows more than the older Explorers. It tows more than some Ford Explorers. This tows a lot more than the 3,500 pounds that a Bronco can tow. And this is fantastic news for the Bronco because Ford, you've got your Challenger here. It's pulling 6,000. So for 2024, listen to Johnny here, who that, I've said for quite a while, it'd be great if you could have a heavy tow package on the Bronco where you get you would get a Bronco that is less off-road worthy in regards to comfort when you're taking those bumps, but that the suspension is stiffer and just built for towing. So Ford, if you're watching, if you're listening, offer us a heavy tow package for the Bronco. Tell everyone, don't sell it as, the world's most capable off-road package and vehicle. When you take that package, sell it honestly. Say, well, you're going to get less off-road capability, but probably way more than most people will ever need or use. But now you can tow 6,000 pounds or 7. Heck, the 2.3 liter in the Ranger tows 7,500 pounds. The 2.7 liter in the F-150 tows now about pretty much 10,000, right around 10,000 pounds. So why not offer a nice healthy 7,000 pound towing capacity, and you get to say that, you're best in class towing. I'm having trouble reading this from a distance, but Noctil something or another. I'm laughing at your comment. It definitely, the Lexus GX coming with a twin turbo V6, very cool engine, I'd say. About $15,000 more. No official pricing on the GX, and nothing even speculated, I believe, from Toyota yet. But while this is supposed to start around $55,000, which is going to be about $10,000 more than new pricing on the 4Runner, which I've predicted is going to be at about $45,000. This is going to be, according to Toyota themselves, about $55,000. While the GX, I speculate, is going to be $65,000 to $70,000 as a starting price, which is a lot of money, folks. But Lexus, generally, really reliable, really reliable. Good resale to very good resale, depending on the model. And very comfortable and just dependable, reliable. It's like kind of like getting a Mercedes, but it's good, really good. So I would buy a Lexus before I would buy a Mercedes most days of the week. But traditionally, I've always preferred styling from Mercedes. But I like the styling on this. So this is really good news. I'm liking it.
Plenty of gear to the next campsite. Heritage is a crucial part of the 2024 Landcruiser's design. It backs up its impressive capability with an appearance inspired by its predecessors.
So we don't need to talk too much about styling because, yes, Toyota realized from the Ford Bronco that nostalgia sells, and nostalgia makes a lot of money. They're banking on that. And here is an interesting point for all you folks out there who are following along and listening. They canceled the Landcruiser in 21. So there's no 22 and there's no 23 Landcruiser. They only planned on selling it abroad. They're still selling it abroad as, I believe, the 300, where it's longer, a little wider, and can still seat 8 people, because the previous Landcruiser V8 that could seat 8 people. This is now shorter, less wide. They've removed the 8-seat capacity, but it's not very much. Hasn't lost very much width, and it hasn't even lost very much length. Really, they took out the extra seats because they don't want it competing with the bigger Toyotas like the Sequoia. They've got to have a reason to be able to sell it at 25, other than just saying, hey, the market is starting to not enjoy our high prices. And on price, it's going to start at 55, but expect most dealerships to ask a lot more. But in the last years, like in 2021, Toyota had trouble selling, more than 4,000 of these. And that's impressive. So Toyota, for over a decade, had trouble selling more than 3,000 to 4,000 units per year. That was their typical yearly sales rate in the United States. However, they're banking on this heritage look. They saw how it worked for the Bronco, and they saw that, selling nostalgia sells big, because they plan on selling all 500 examples of the first edition, which are going to be the first vehicles built in the first few months. They're going to be all first edition. So, a little hit at Ford, you can learn from this. When you call something first edition, make sure it comes out first. I know it's crazy to use numbers for what they were meant to indicate: order, I know, it's crazy. Who would ever use numbers to indicate order? Nowadays, first, you don't want to be first, because if you're first, then you're last. For example, if you love steak and you're not afraid to be yourself and you speak for what you think is right and wholesome and good for society, like a strong middle class, families, if you speak to that, well then, you're near criminal. How could you ever think that eating steak is okay? And how could you ever think that a man and a woman starting a family is, good for, your happiness levels and your psychology?
You really were able to find steak in the Landcruiser.
Yes, I absolutely can find steak in the
Oh
Landcruiser. But first edition is more a quip at Ford, because their first edition seems to come last. But their first edition, they're going to make 5,000 of them. That's going to be the production for the first few months. And they plan on selling them also within only the first few months. So in the first few months, they plan on doing more than what they used to be able to do in a year. Why? Because they looked at Ford and they said, that works. So, but let's see if 55,000 as a starting price point for your 1958 edition, which comes less equipped. It comes with an 8-inch screen, not the bigger 12-inch screen. It comes with fantastic safety technology. It comes with, a good sound system, a decent interior. We'll get to interior photos in a moment. It's all gray. It looks very much Toyota Prius, but on the higher model, the interior is mind-blowingly good. Really solid, beautiful, beautiful interior on the higher, more expensive model, which is probably going to start about $7,000 more, at probably about $62,000. So let's just continue on. I'm off the rant. Let's finish this Landcruiser talk up so we can get to more Bronco talk.
The adventurous spirit isn't just limited to Landcruiser's exterior. Step inside, and the first features that stand out are those that underscore its ability to go nearly anywhere. The standard 2400 watt inverter, for example, can power small appliances for short-term use while off the grid, while the available center console cool box provides storage for provisions on the go. Additionally, available front and rear USB-C charging ports and an available Qi-compatible wireless charger keeps mobile devices fully juiced for moments that
available,
must be
not standard,
and shared. On top of all that, Landcruiser
tons of
has
space,
a ton of conveniences available that make it as comfortable
well sold. Good job, Toyota.
on a big trip.
Spot on.
With seating for 5,
Beautiful
there's room
interior.
for everyone to come along. Creature comforts like
Beautiful.
standard heated and available
Nice
ventilated front
touchscreen.
seats,
Ventilated
a standard
seats. Can't
heated
get that on a
steering wheel,
Bronco.
and a standard smart key system.
So who would think? Standard heated seat, standard heated steering wheel, and ventilated seats. Standard. But not on the 1958 model. Not on the $55,000 model. That's what's going to be called. Now, Toyota, I think they messed up their naming in just one way. So, first edition, they're building first. Smart. Toyota figured that out. They saw Ford completely botch that. Then, they call the next model they're going to make after the first few months of making 5,000 first edition models. They're going to call that the Landcruiser 1958. Round headlights. Homage to the old heritage, the old school Landcruisers. Less equipped, like old school, less technology, like old school Landcruisers, but still amazing safety features like the adaptive cruise control and the lane keeping. Mind-blowing that they're offering that as standard. Ford, take notes, 2024 Bronco, maybe you should give a little more safety features for as standard equipment to help compete with this. And even Jeep is starting to, Jeep is slowly going to move away from their idea of roll-up windows and really uncomfortable seats. Jeep has had to upgrade their game because of Bronco, and now Bronco is probably going to upgrade a little bit of their game for 2024 because of the Landcruiser. So this is all just amazing news that, despite my rants, does make me happy. I'm happy that the Landcruiser is out. I'm very disappointed when it tries to get pushed as a go-everywhere off-roader. It does have some very great off-road parts to it, but they messed it up with the ground clearance. The ground clearance is awful, but the front stabilizer bar disconnect, fantastic. The center locking diff, fantastic. The locking rear diff on a solid axle, fantastic. Independent front suspension, but with stabilizer bar disconnect, amazing. Ford, take notes. Offer stabilizer bar disconnect as an option to every Sasquatch package. Don't just make it a Badlands thing, because Badlands forces you into a certain style, your gray grill. Badlands doesn't appeal in regards to style and interior to everyone. Some people want an electric seat, but also stabilizer bar disconnect.
That's true.
So offer it. Take notes from Toyota. Toyota has a lot to learn from Ford, and Ford has a lot to learn from Toyota. Probably the best company would be the two combined together, because Toyota seems to have no one maybe willing to shake the pot and risk losing their job to stop the project and say, hey guys, what are you, a bunch of idiots? 8.3 inches of ground clearance, but with all this amazing off-road gear on it. Some people are stupid and are going to think that they're buying a real off-roader, but other people are going to say, hey, it's a lady with man parts on it. I know that's inappropriate, but that's what they're doing here. They're throwing some crazy, wild, extreme off-road gear on something that is being, heck, it's like if I took my poodles as a guard dog, because I've got the little spiked collar and all your traditional like guard dog gear on them. They bark like a guard dog. They bite like a guard dog. So I think I have a guard dog. Actually, that does describe my poodles, actually. But angry little beasts. But I know what they are. They're just, little fur balls of Winston.
5 pounds.
5 pounds of pure anger. He must take after me, I guess. But he's no guard dog. And
they want their steak too.
If I see another dog that's barking at he's having a bark competition with, I'll put Winston in my arms, and I know that I've got to protect it. Just like the Landcruiser needs to be protected from any actual rocks and any real forests. But anywho, I digress.
But I'm very sold on the interior of the Toyota. That's
beautiful.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a lot better than the Ford Bronco. So, truth. The interior on the Landcruiser
was great looking,
beats the Ford Bronco.
seats.
It beats the Jeep. It beats anything out there at a reasonable price. I feel like I'm looking at the interior of a Land Rover. Mm-hmm. But of course, the material, the quality of the leather isn't going to be anything like a Land Rover, which Land Rover does great for interiors, the seats. But I love this. This is completely blowing the Bronco out of the water. It's completely blowing the Jeep out of the water. But on some real trails, it's just there to blow. So continuing, because I said something not inappropriate.
As easy to live with as it is to take on a long journey. For even more convenience, an active Remote Connect trial or subscription gives owners access to the available digital key, enabling them to use their smartphone to lock, unlock, and start the vehicle, and share access with an approved list of drivers through the Toyota app.
Yeah, just like the Ford Pass. So even with the Ford Bronco, no one's winning there.
Landcruiser's throwback design is complemented by the latest multimedia and connectivity.
Now, you won't get this on the 1958 edition. The 1958 Landcruiser, that's your base price. You're getting an all gray, pretty boring interior, and you're getting an 8-inch screen. So it's not going to be anything like this model, and I do expect it to be about $7,000. I expect the starting price of this model to be anywhere from $62,000 to $65,000. Not something Toyota is focusing on. They're talking about that amazing starting point. They're showing us this amazing interior. That's not what, that's where people are going to get disappointed. I don't want anyone getting fooled. You're not getting this for anywhere near $55,000. Is the interior incredible? Yes, it's 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. But it's going to depend on the price. If it comes out $15,000 more, well, it can't, because then you're in GX territory, the Lexus. And it can't be Lexus priced, but the Lexus should be about $15,000 more than 55. So we should be looking at about 70, maybe even 75,000. So this logically should start at about 65, and helps us gauge that the new Toyota 4Runner, which would probably be my preferred choice. I'd probably be more into the Toyota 4Runner because of its added ground clearance. I think that yet to be unveiled, but I've got a really great picture and idea of what the 2024 or 2025 4Runner is going to be. It's going to have considerably better ground clearance than that. Let's hope Toyota doesn't forget the tow hooks on it. But this is good that it has tow hooks because you're going to need them if you try to do anything serious with it.
Technologies. The newest Toyota audio multimedia system, which comes with a standard 8-inch or an available 12.3-inch touchscreen, includes standard wireless compatibility for Apple CarPlay, which connects drivers to the apps on their iPhone, including Maps, Messages, Podcasts, and music subscriptions. In addition, wireless Android Auto compatibility makes it easy to stay connected to Android devices.
Very standard.
Access various apps
They could get it out in one sentence.
including YouTube
It plugs to
Music and Google
it talks
Maps.
with your phone. Thanks.
Furthermore, an available 14-speaker JBL premium audio
Oh,
system
JBL.
provides an
Yeah, they're
epic
good.
listening experience.
Yeah.
While the
Good
available
choice.
Fair, yeah. Focus what you're good at. It is going to be an epic sound experience. Not at 55,000. I wish they would have been fair and said, present it. This is your 1958. It's 55. This is your Landcruiser variant. And that's the thing. The third name, not so great. Landcruiser variant. Who's going to get excited about something called the Landcruiser variant? Why is it a variant? Is it because it has off-road parts on a non-off-road vehicle? Maybe that's why it's the variant. But this in a Bronco, forget about it. This in a Jeep, Wrangler, or Gladiator, not that I know of. This is something I expect more in a Mercedes or in, surprisingly, a high trim in the Ford Escape plug-in, the technology trim for 5,000 Canadian. It'll get you heads-up display. That's very cool. So ventilated seats, Bronco doesn't have it. Basically, everything when it comes to interior and technology, the Toyota is just blowing out of the water the 2023 Ford Bronco.
head-up display projects key information in the driver's line of sight. Rounding out Landcruiser's tech story are its impressive driver assistance and convenience features, complementing its standout performance. That means every grade comes standard with Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, which includes features
Fantastic.
like pre-collision system with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with steering assist, and full-speed range dynamic radar cruise control.
Let's also mention the fact that it has automatic high beams, which I absolutely love. Fantastic. Proactive driving assistance, but lane tracing assist. It's impressive that it's got lane tracing assist. It's impressive that it has dynamic radar cruise control as standard, and it has lane departure alert. Now, our lane keeping is available on the Bronco High package, and it's one of the best in the system, in the market, but yet it's not standard. And why I say it's one of the best on the market is because when you start to go out of the lines, it doesn't beep at you, doesn't start flashing and really being a major distraction. It just vibrates the steering wheel and helps bring you back. It's just the perfect level of
Not
assistance.
stressful. Yeah. But I know for sure Toyota has a really good package with the safety sense since many, many years. I worked there
2018.
maybe 5 years before, and they had this safety sense, and it was always great. So yeah, that's a nice feature
It's
that we
a
have.
good performing system.
Control. What's more, the available multi-terrain monitor is designed to help the driver see the vehicle's surroundings when driving off-road.
Now, an area where the Bronco does win on technology is that front camera, that when you put it in Baja mode, you can just be blowing through whatever terrain and you can see exactly what's in front of you. So that's a big positive for the Ford Bronco. I think it's a really nice option. We enjoy it. It's an option we like.
With a long history backed by outstanding performance, there's no questioning Landcruiser's iconic status. This nameplate has won the hearts of the world thanks to its blend of off-road capability and daily usability, all backed by Toyota's reputation for quality, durability, and reliability. And since Landcruiser is a hybrid, it supports
And
Beyond Zero,
Peugeot.
Toyota's efforts towards its vision of a carbon-neutral future. Together with its show...
Okay, so, and this is another point that's really bothering me. Toyota can't stop talking about how they're going towards a carbon neutral future. Carbon neutral future. Well, your 4Runner is horrible on gas. Reliable V6, low power, under 300 horsepower, under 300 pound-feet of torque. This has good, very good horsepower and incredible torque. 465 pound-feet of torque, absolutely incredible. But that hybrid spiel about being carbon neutral is just complete garbage, because I don't expect this to be that fuel efficient. It will beat the Bronco when it comes to fuel efficiency. And Ford, if you want to keep up and beat the competition, you got to come out with a plug-in for 2024. You got to unveil that. But I expect this to have about 19 miles per gallon in the highway. Sorry, in the city. And that's because the current, the larger LX from Lexus runs 19 miles per gallon with the same engine, and as a combined. So it's doing 17 in the city and 22 miles per gallon on the highway. So I'm expecting this sort of like I'm expecting the Tacoma to get. This should get roughly Tacoma-like fuel economy for the new one, 2024 Tacoma. So we're probably going to look at 18 to 19 miles per gallon in the city. And actually, because of the hybrid, how they're going to calculate it is basically they're going to test it right when the battery is full and when it's most efficient. So they might get 21 or 22 in the city. But I expect for most people, the reality is going to be about 19 to 20 miles per gallon in the city. It's only going to do about probably, it's not going to perform any miracles. And on the highway, it's probably going to get 22 to 23 miles per gallon. So, comparing this to the LX 600 with the same engine, it's not going to be that much better just because it's a little lighter. Now, the 2021 Landcruiser did 13 miles per gallon in the city, which is awful. And it did 17 on the highway. So for a rough 15 and a half miles per gallon, that's pretty bad because it wasn't all that powerful. Now our Bronco, some people are getting 22 miles per gallon as an average. Now over here, we're pretty heavy-footed, but we're getting 16.4 miles per gallon on the wild track Bronco. But we have 11.9 inches of ground clearance. We have 35-inch tires. If you put a Bronco, drop it many inches and put on small tires, it would get a lot better fuel economy. So the fact that this has gone hybrid isn't helping anything other than Toyota pass those CAFE rules, so you get up your fleet average. They're trying to get their fleet average up to 50 miles per gallon, of course, because they don't want to have, billions of dollars in fines from the government, so that instead of getting the fines, they'll go and they'll buy tax credits from Tesla, just like Dodge. Dodge has to get rid of their V8s because they've been buying tax credits from Tesla, which allows Tesla to appear like they make a profit on their vehicles. They don't make profits on their vehicles. They make profits from a corrupt, invented system that is made to force us to think that it's a good idea to go to all electric vehicles, sold on the lie that it's going to save the environment. So I don't know what and why there's this end goal of putting us into electric vehicles. I just know that what we're being sold isn't right. It doesn't add up. Just like this is a great vehicle. It's a beautiful vehicle. It's going to be a very dependable vehicle. It's got a lot of positive points, but it doesn't add up as an extremely impressive go almost anywhere off-roader because it has 8.3 inches of ground clearance. And that's often the problem with electric vehicles. It's like, oh, well, if we look at one factor or two factors, they're fantastic and they're great for the environment. But then if you look at, oh, well, the electricity is coming from coal plants, and oh, we're irresponsible as, I'm not going to call us a race, but a species, where we're irresponsible animals that aren't good at, people have trouble just controlling and monitoring and, really just behaving themselves. So it's very hard to control millions of people and to then control very powerful corporations. I highly doubt these batteries are going to be recycled in any responsible way. I think a few of them are going to be recycled really properly, and I think a lot of it is going to be like the adventure we've had with plastic. Plastic was supposed to be the greatest thing, and oh so good, and we used to be, in certain respects, society that was much more about use and reuse. We used to put out our milk bottles and we'd use the same model milk bottles, and the milkman would come, and we were supposed to fix everything by switching to plastic, and all we've done is we pay often Chinese corporations to recycle the plastic. They get on these boats, they go off towards China, and the plastic just ends up getting dumped into the ocean. And then we go, oh, there's plastic in the ocean, we need to try to clean it up, which will never catch up. And we try to say, oh, well, we really need to be careful about the plastic, we just randomly throw away. We really need to get back more into that whole recycling plan. Well, the whole recycling plan is you give a company your plastic and it gets recycled into the ocean. So it's all a big racket.
Yeah.
So that's the Landcruiser, folks. Fantastic towing. It's beating the Ford Bronco in several categories. It's got a better interior. It's got a nicer interior. I don't know how it could have a more comfortable seat. The Bronco seats are some of the most, they are the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in. It's not beating the Bronco in regards to engine options. So already the Bronco has two engine options, the 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbo. It's about 315 horsepower and about 335 pound-feet of torque, but you also have the 2.7 liter. So if Ford only had the 4-cylinder, it would win with powertrains. But Ford has the 2.7 liter twin turbo V6, super powerful, 415 pound-feet of torque. Really powerful option. I think 335 horsepower, if I recall correctly. And I'm not a big fan of if I recall correctly when I've got the specs right up, not far away. So 11.6 inches of ground clearance. I said 11.9 a few times. Sorry about that. Always trying to squeeze in an extra half inch into my calculations, I guess, here. But we've got a nice, powerful powertrain, 330 horsepower, or 315 on regular fuel and 415 pound-feet of torque. But you can also just throw in regular fuel and get 410 pound-feet of torque. I prefer to use 93 octane because we tested it in Florida for about 25 hours of driving. We were testing fuel, and our results were that we were saving, what was it, about 3 miles per gallon when we used 93 octane? We were getting 3 miles per gallon better fuel economy.
Exactly,
roughly.
We were saving for sure.
Yeah, we did our best to do the math in the vehicle, chatting back and forth, and worst case scenario, putting in 93 octane was the same price because of the better fuel efficiency than using 87 octane. Best case scenario, and even in worst case scenario, it's even, but with fuel that helps clean the engine. It's better for the vehicle, helps avoid potential knocking, so with much better fuel. But I think we had a slight advantage. So we're like, well, why wouldn't we put fuel that's just better for the vehicle? So really good looking vehicle, but of course, you're allowed to dislike the styling. That's the 1958 look. Really like the lines here down the side. I think that's a really nice line coming down the vehicle.
Yeah, that's a great design.
I prefer the rounded arch look, but I do like how this has a very squared off look, even off the roof line. Nice squared off look. So really nice shape. The whole bottom of the vehicle is sort of that flat plastic. Not a fan of that. I think it looks cheap. The front bumper and back bumper, I think, look a little cheap. And I'd say in styling, this looks great, but I'd have to say that the Bronco does win out when it comes to styling and practicality, because you can't take the roof. This will have a sunroof option.
Yeah, that's what I was asking you. I was going to asking you if we can remove the roof, but I guess not.
Cannot remove the roof. You'll have a sunroof, and they're not talking about panoramic roof. They're talking about sunroof. So that means probably a nice little square, nothing impressive at all. Probably embarrassing if they try to ask more money for it. Panoramic roofs, they're usually expensive, but they're also pretty impressive. But I'd say that the bottom of the vehicle, all that plastic, does give, I find, it's very practical, but I find it gives a bit of a cheap look to the vehicle. And at $55,000, that's not cheap.
Yeah, we'll be curious to see how many they will sell in the first year with that price.
Toyota will offer some incredible colors. That's for sure. We're
Like
already
always.
seeing, like always, we're already seeing some really great colors.
Nice wheels.
Really nice wheels. This is the variant. This is Landcruiser variant that we're looking at now. So you saw some nice wheels. Well, that's because you're gonna have to dish out extra dollars.
For sure.
How do you feel about the square lights versus the round lights?
I don't know. The round lights, I feel it's like the Bronco. So maybe I prefer the square lights so they will have their proper look. But at the same time, I feel like because it's small lights, we see all the big plastic stuff in the middle. So maybe that's too much plastic. If the light will be more thick, maybe it will help balance the plastic.
I'm liking this grill about as much as I like certain Bronco grills. So I'm not a huge fan of the base model grill, the black, diamond, the big bend. I don't like any of those grills. I like the Outer Banks grill. I really like the Outer Banks grill. I find the Badlands grill okay. Just the color that throws me off, and I love the Wild Track grill. So far, Toyota isn't offering a single grill that I like. I do really like the 1958 lights, and these lights remind me of 80s squared off trucks, so I think they're great. It's got a good heritage look. I really like the styling, but I really do prefer the styling off the Bronco.
Yeah. It's just the interior. I really prefer the interior of the Toyota, but the exterior of the Bronco, yeah, if we made that, it will be the better car ever. The best car ever.
Hey, you're saying if Toyota and Ford were to kind of be one company.
Bronco outside, Toyota inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best car ever.
And that means Ford has an incredible opportunity right here. The price on the Bronco has considerably gone up over the last 3 years. From 21 to now, the price has already gone up a lot. If they keep the price the same or slightly increase the price, I think this is going to help encourage Ford to come out with a plug-in on the Bronco. I think it's going to help encourage Ford to, maybe modify their grills a little, modify their wheel options, because, let's face it, Big Bend wheels are pretty basic. They're okay. Black Diamond, at least they're offering a decent secondary wheel option. If you like the rim, the black rim look, the Steelies look, yeah, you might love the Black Diamond, and that's fine if that's what you're into. So I've actually got photos of a Black Diamond here, but these are a lot less expensive because, a Big Ben is 4-door is what? You can have that for about 51,000 Canadian, and you can have a manual transmission. So you can't have a manual transmission on the Landcruiser. So Ford is definitely offering us a lot more options. So the Bronco wins on powertrain. The Bronco wins on styling. The Bronco wins by a landslide when it comes to off-roading. Where does the Landcruiser win? Well, the Landcruiser wins on safety features. The Landcruiser wins on the quality of the interior. Those are that steely look off the Black Diamond. So there's your Black Diamond. And Black Diamond's about 55,000 Canadian. Landcruiser is 55,000 US. So remember, there's usually about a 30% difference between the vehicles. So we're talking about $15,000, roughly $15,000 more for a Landcruiser than a Bronco. But let's say we were to go and build a Bronco right here, right now. I do them so often, you'd think I already have a window open for this. Now, do you think there's any other areas that we should mention that either the Bronco wins or the Landcruiser wins?
I guess we did all the list that we need to compare.
Now, who would you say, where would your money go?
Between the Bronco and the Toyota?
Yep.
Landcruiser? Bronco for sure.
Okay. But you'd like to see the Bronco have some of the things that the Landcruiser has.
Yeah, because I know that the interior, you always said, I wanted the ventilated seats. I don't understand why they don't have that, because we have it on other Ford models.
Yeah.
So I know what Toyota have in the interior, you really, really appreciate it if you have it on the Bronco. But at the same time, will I die if I don't have ventilated seats? No, so I will go for the look of the exterior then. And the price, because I know Toyota is always selling a model with higher price of their category. So.
And the 1958 doesn't have the stabilizer bar disconnect. It gets the fixed anti-roll bars, so no stabilizer bar disconnect. So they've definitely cut it down on that 1958 model. That's $55,000. So they're really expecting people to dish out big money for the whole nostalgia, the heritage. I think Ford, as often as we complain about Bronco pricing and how bad it's gone up, you can get a two-door manual Bronco, so things you can't get on the Landcruiser, starting at $39,130. If you go four-door, $39,870. So why am I not showing the base model and talking about base model pricing? Well, that's because, well, good luck getting a base model. The base model starts at $34,800, but I think it's probably maybe going to get canceled for 2024, but they'll bring in an extra powertrain option being the plug-in. So that's what we've got to say. Wow. We could still talk probably another 10 minutes about all the little minor details, like how the 1958 kind of lacks a power lift gate, which is kind of surprising at roughly $55,000. So there are definitely some things where the 1958 model is not winning at, but it is a good model. I think it's definitely worth considering, especially if you're not so much focused on money, but you're more so focused on just having something that you really find cool. And I think it is a very cool vehicle, and I think it's going to make a lot of people happy as long as they don't try to do some extreme hardcore off-roading with this vehicle. I recommend you go and find the interior photos. Check out interior photos on the 1958, because I've talked a few times about how it's not quite impressive. And right here, I'm having trouble getting photos out of, I believe Toyota actually, surprisingly, I believe did show the interior. Now, if we go to the gallery, they do show the interior of their 1958. They're not hiding it. I don't know why Car and Driver didn't seem to have photos there of the interior, but let's see Toyota. Toyota, are you hiding your 1958 interior? Yes, I think they actually are. Yep. They're showing us the high-end interior. There's that sunroof. Sorry, I was speculating, saying before, I'm almost positive it's going to be a small roof. Well, there's your proof. So small sunroof, nice mags, nice grille, but they do not feel like showing you the interior of the 1958, which is the model they won't stop talking about its price. So there we go, folks. Quick wrap up. Real quick wrap up and a new episode. So we're no longer talking about the battle between the Ford Bronco and the Landcruiser. Clearly, the Ford Bronco completely beats the Landcruiser on pricing. The Landcruiser gives you more options, more technology, and more options. I mean, in regards to, interior options, comfort, technology, but they're giving it at a much higher price. I think what will be more in my price range and something that I think will be more worth it is going to be the new 4Runner when it gets unveiled. So that is that. Now, what's going on with the automobile market? So we'll drop into a new episode. Here we go. Car prices have gone up a ton. And, well, while prices have gone up, some are speculating that, they can get away with this because manufacturers are still sharing these great stories about how sales have increased compared to a year ago, and that a lot of YouTube channels, fair enough, it does seem like it. It seems like these prices are only getting propped up and only survive because of fleet sales. And well, actually, we've got a story to that. Yes, they are getting supported by fleet sales, but they always have. So there's nothing nefarious and evil that's also new going on. Companies have always tried to keep their prices up with fleet, but then if ever fleet, if you can't sell anymore, if you're starting to lose sales towards governments, towards rental companies, towards major corporations that will buy maybe 2, 3, 4,000 units at a time, when those sales start to go down and your retail meaning customers, consumers like Marie here and Winston, when those families stop buying their family vehicles, well, that's when you need to drop your prices. That's always been the case. We've got the data to go to show that story right there. So let's check this out here and head over, actually. Winston decided to wake up. That's bad news for me. So we've got July fleet sales. They've rebounded, but there's nothing nefarious going on here. Manufacturers aren't being saved by fleet sales in any different way than they ever have. So let's just check it out. The graph sort of tells a different story than what I'm telling here. If you don't mind just sliding a little bit over. So the blue line here that we've got on the screen, those are your fleet sales, and your orange, green, I don't know line. The lighter colored line is actually your retail sales. And if we actually look back down here at the beginning, we're looking at 2018. And as you go along, you can see fleet sales in 2018, throughout all of 2018 and all of 2019, fleet sales were always performing better than retail sales. And that changed as of March 2020. What happened in March 2020? Well, yards generally at dealerships started to not have very many vehicles left in them. Manufacturers had a choice: continue to provide vehicles to fleet and have your consumers be very upset, or ask fleet, governments, major corporations, hey, could you keep those trucks that we sold you 2 years ago? Normally you switch, 10,000 vehicles every 2 years. We're not going to be able to provide those vehicles. Well, really what they're saying is, put in your order, but we don't think we can, give you those 10,000 vehicles we normally would. We'll give you 1,000. Because, well, they were producing less vehicles. But who are they, we could say, who are they feeding? Or what wheel was getting the oil? Well, the squeaky wheel was getting the oil. As consumers, we tend to squeak a lot louder when we don't get what we want, as compared to governments, police departments, fire departments. If you tell them, look, your F-150 police vehicles, your F-150 fire trucks that you're using to move around your fire chief, can you keep it an extra 2 years? They're just like, okay. It's no sweat off their back. It's not the end of the world. They have the funds to put in the repairs instead of making the switch. They just, they're not the squeaky wheel. Consumers, when we don't get our new vehicle, just like a kid that, you've decided you feed them sugar 5 days a week, but then you decide Saturday they're not getting any candy. Well, they're going to be grabbing at those candy bars when you go buy the cash. And boy, do I wish grocery stores wouldn't put all the candy bars by the cash. Sugar is a drug, and they're just putting it by the cash because they know what it's going to do. It's going to trigger your brain. You're going to want to go for it.
And it works on you.
And then it works on me. And then after you get your little sugar fix, you're hungrier after eating sugar, spikes your insulin, and it makes us sort of all doughy and weak. And anyways.
Conclusion, eat steaks.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. Eat steaks. Eat a lot of red meat. It'll help with your creatine levels and your testosterone levels, and avoid sugar at all costs.
Okay, stop. I don't want to go there with that. It was just a joke.
So what did they do in 2020? March 2020, fleet sales go way down. But, retail sales go down, but that they switched around. So previously, fleet were getting, you could say, more vehicles. Fleet was performing. It's actually based on performance. So fleet sales were propping up and holding the prices and helping manufacturers deal with their inventory more so than consumers. In March 2020, production volumes went way down. So then manufacturers put the oil on the squeaky wheel. They gave all the vehicles they could to consumers. They also did that with very specific reasons. They didn't want dealerships to be able to overprice these vehicles. Manufacturers do not like having upset consumers. They don't benefit in any way from dealers ripping consumers off. So here what happens is, throughout 20 to now, many dealerships have been overpricing and marking up their vehicles to consumers. The less vehicles that are available, the more they can abuse us, the more they can raise those prices. So manufacturers generally here, this actually shows that manufacturers they tried to be as good as they possibly could to us. They provided less fleet vehicles, and they provided more vehicles to retail, which was the opposite of what was going on before March 2020. Then in May, around March 21, much greater performance in regards to retail and fleet sales. And in both instances, much better performance, but fleet is back on top. Why? Because production started to go back up in 2021 for a brief period. But then when production crashed again and, we didn't actually make it out of the chip crisis, which in 21, they probably thought, oh, we'll make it out of the chip crisis. And then what's going on again? Well, they're back to providing, I'll point to the right spot here, more towards the end, right here around, from March 21 until January 22, they're providing more vehicles to the retail side of things. Again, trying to control dealerships to avoid excessive markups by the hands of dealerships, which is no benefit to the manufacturer. The money is only kept by the dealerships, which are separate businesses from the manufacturers. And now, what did they do? For basically 2 years, they provided less vehicles than they normally would to fleet. They preferred and favored and gave more vehicles to retail. And now the story is just that they're back to their regular status quo. We see it back in 2018, 2019, part of 2020. Retail was always performing better than, fleet was always performing better than retail. And now we're back to fleet performing better than retail. And here is the big bombshell. As long as fleet companies basically continue to take at high numbers vehicles and enough to really basically sponge up all the normal production, prices will stay high. So 2 things really need to happen for prices to crash. Consumers need to stop buying vehicles, and fleet needs to stop buying vehicles. But as long as the economy is rolling well, fleet will need vehicles. Companies, as long as the economy is going well, companies will continue. If they're making money, they're going to continue to need business expenses. They're going to continue to buy these vehicles. So this leads us to our final story of the night. So the last episode, what's going on with used values and what's going on with new vehicles? Well, you can check out the story at Cox Automotive, but wholesale used vehicle prices see a smaller decline in July. Yes, because in June, wholesale prices on used vehicles dropped by 4%. It's huge. And in July, they didn't drop by nearly as much. So from a year ago, the drop has been pretty impressive. 11.6% loss values on all your trades, folks. That is huge. So, and it's not because the market is crashing and horrible. The used market is still pretty darn good, because a year ago, on average, based on historic norms, used vehicles were up roughly 40%. They're worth roughly 40% than they should be worth. So a drop of 11.6% from a year ago is an important drop. It's a move in the right direction. It's not catastrophic. So when you see those thumbnails that are saying used market, catastrophe, or these basically thumbnails that are like end of the world because of used vehicle prices, economy in crisis, just look at the used car prices. No, we're going back to something that's still, it's less inflated than last year, but it's still inflated. And for July, you can see it here on the graph. You can see, used prices back in 1997, moving up to 21, 2005, a little dip, of course, in 2008. What's that dip? Well, that's the major recession, the huge economic problems based on the housing bubble. Then you got the peak starting, things started to move back up January 2011 to 2017. Impressive. From 2011 to 2017, prices were relatively stable. A drop in 2020 or end 2019, early 2020, and then prices, people were worried about what was going to go on, economy closing, people being forced to stay at home, and then
people losing jobs.
New vehicles production, much lower production of new vehicles, which meant less trade-ins. And it also meant that people normally shopping for a new vehicle couldn't get one. Many people, like Marie, generally say, well, if you don't have it on the lot, I don't want to buy it. I'm not going to order a vehicle. And they then went and tried to buy a used vehicle. But the fewer new sales means less trade-ins, which means just less used vehicles to buy. So more competition, more demand for that smaller supply. So prices skyrocketed from 2020 until summer 21.
That's impressive.
Went down a little in the winter, like it does every winter. That's just historic norms. Bumps back up in the spring. You can see the bump back up in the spring. That's a spring bump. These are, spring bumps here. Then a drop. So right now, when you look at, they're looking here, January 2023, things are only starting to drop somewhat. Like they could be down here. Here's the norm. They've got a lot of space to drop. They could drop another 20%, but for July, not much of a drop. So if you're shopping a used vehicle right now, well, the good news is prices dropped in May, values dropped in June, but they did not drop by that much in July. It was a drop of 1.6%. So buying a used vehicle right now with the very high interest rates, I don't feel it's the best time to buy a used vehicle. If you're looking at a 5, 6, 7-year-old used vehicle, don't get it unless you have to. Of course, if you're driving a 15-year-old vehicle, I would go for those. I deal with the higher interest rates. Why? Because an older 15-year-old vehicle might cost you, $6,000, $10,000, $12,000 in repairs on a vehicle that, maybe only is worth $10,000 when fixed and running perfectly. So you don't want to put money into what I call a money pit. You don't want to have to put, $5,000 into something that's only worth 10 once it's fixed. You want to avoid that. But if your vehicle can tough it out, I wouldn't switch a 5-year-old vehicle for a 4-year-old vehicle. Why go from your current interest rate of, you might have a used interest rate now of 4%. Why bring that up to 10% to get a vehicle that's only 1 year newer? If I have a 5-year-old vehicle, though, I would consider a new vehicle if, let's say, Jeep. Jeep, if you're getting 15, 20% rebate at Jeep, well, that means they're offering you the rebate. That's the internet rebate. Jeeps need to have $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in rebates on them, like they always have, especially with their huge major price increases. But you should only get a Jeep or a Dodge if you've got a great rebate on it. Right now at Ford, you're looking at a pretty darn good interest rate and a bit of rebates on certain models like the F-150, like an F-150 XLT EcoBoost. You can get $3,750 of rebates and actually a pretty decent interest rate. So a 5-year-old vehicle that's going to need, winter tires soon, summer tires, brakes, maybe if you're around 170, 80,000 miles or 120,000 kilometers, probably going to need shocks for that vehicle soon. If you're looking at a vehicle that you might be putting $4,000 to $8,000 into soon because it's 5 to 7 years old, I would definitely consider buying a new vehicle, because guess what? Your 5-year-old vehicle, it's not worth the crazy insanity of summer 2021 or summer 2022. It's not worth those insane prices, but it's still worth here. This is a lot higher than here. I love graphs because they're easy to follow. Low values. So you see this is low on the bar. That's low values. Crazy high values. And we're still at some pretty darn crazy high values for those 5, 6, well, anything used that's not too out of date. Or who knows, if you have a 20-year-old Toyota, maybe you can be one of those crackheads asking $25,000 for a 20-year-old 4Runner, a 20-year-old, a 20-year-old Toyota truck. So we've got to go because I've got to recharge. That's the end of the show. It's a great time to buy a new vehicle. It's a pretty decent time to buy a new vehicle if you've got one of these inflated trade-ins. So anything between a 2-year-old vehicle to a 9-10-year-old vehicle, a 10-year-old, 12-year-old truck, I would definitely consider trading right now. It's got great value before putting money into it. If you got a 5-year-old vehicle, I definitely would not trade it in for a 3-year-old used vehicle. Your interest rate's going to go way up. And a 3-year-old vehicle is going to be in the same position that your 5-year-old vehicle is in just 2 years. So that's where my buyer's advice is this week. I promise with that advice, you will save thousands of dollars. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help feed and dress those poodles. Marie, the pregnant mama who went to Bronco off-rodeo and drove her own Bronco, and you really impressed me. You went up and you never got to the photos. Next week's live, we'll have to show that Marie went up some granite steps, huge sheets. We must have gone up for about 250 feet. It was 3 different sheets of granite and with little lips, like decent lips to get up on top of. And it was amazing. She put the pedal down and she went up. She crawled over some crazy rocks. You hit out the bottom of the Bronco like 5 or 6 times. You didn't just open the door and run into the forest screaming. You got eaten by a pile of mosquitoes. So we'll have to get that off-road footage to you all because Marie, the pregnant mama, did some pretty hardcore off-roading because normally the Bronco off-rodeo, it goes from light to light-heavy off-roading.
But we were a small group.
We're a small group, and they said we did really well, and we're doing the off-roading really well. So they actually said that I guess we earned doing some extreme off-roading. So we definitely did some extreme off-roading. It was awesome. Really amazing. We got to thank Jason from Bronco Off-Rodeo in New Hampshire. You gave us an amazing experience. So we'll get some photos to you. We'll build some video for you all. And we'll get that information to you real soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We really appreciate you. Thank you to all the members and all the subscribers to help make this community a possibility. Because we have to treat this a bit of a business. We can't just only lose money. So thank you so much, everyone, for helping us have this business. Take care until next time. We wish you all more cars and more power.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.